You've watched the videos. You understand diversification. You know why asset allocation matters. You know what ETFs are, how to compare them, why international stocks and bonds can have a place in a portfolio, what rebalancing does, and what to do when the market crashes. But there is one problem. What do you actually do now? Because knowing 20 different investing concepts doesn't automatically give you an investment plan. So in this final video, we're going to put everything together. By the end, you'll have a simple checklist you can use to build, implement, and maintain a long-term investment portfolio. And the goal isn't to create the perfect portfolio, it's to create a portfolio you understand and a plan you can actually stick with. Before choosing an ETF, there's something more important to deal with first: your financial foundation. Ask yourself, do I have an emergency fund? Have I dealt with high-interest debt? Do I know how much I can realistically invest? And perhaps most importantly, am I investing money that I can afford to leave invested for the appropriate amount of time? Your investment portfolio and your emergency fund have different jobs. Your emergency fund exists for unexpected expenses. Your investment portfolio exists for long-term goals. And remember what we discussed in the previous video, you may eventually decide to keep some additional money available for opportunities during severe market declines. But that doesn't mean raiding your emergency fund when the market falls. Build the financial foundation first. Next, ask, when might I need this money? This is one of the simplest and most important questions in investing. If you're investing for a goal that's decades away, you may have considerably more time to recover from market declines. If you'll need the money in just a few years, a large market decline can be much more difficult to recover from before you need the money. This is why there isn't one asset allocation that's appropriate for everyone. Your portfolio should reflect not only what you hope to earn, but also when you'll need the money. So before you choose your investments, write down your approximate investment horizon. Long-term investing requires long-term thinking. Now we can start building the portfolio. At the highest level, we focused on 3 major building blocks: US stocks, international stocks, bonds. These are the foundation. Your job is to decide how much of your portfolio you want allocated to each. For example, someone might choose an allocation such as 50% US stocks, 30% international stocks, 20% bonds. Another investor might choose something different. The percentages aren't the point of this example. The point is that you decide your target allocation before the market tells you what to do. Because if you wait until stocks have fallen 30%, you may discover that the portfolio you thought you could tolerate isn't actually the portfolio you can tolerate. Your asset allocation is your plan. Now we get to something we've discussed throughout this series. Every investment should have a job. Your portfolio doesn't need to contain every type of ETF that exists. Instead, start with your foundation. Core. Your core portfolio provides the foundation of your strategy. That might include broad US stocks, broad international stocks, bonds. The core is designed to provide diversification and the overall asset allocation you've decided you want. But core doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to be perfectly neutral. You can also introduce what we might call a core tilt. Perhaps you want somewhat more exposure to growth value, small cap companies, dividend-paying companies, a particular sector or theme. These can be deliberate tilts within your long-term strategy. But there's an important distinction. If your broad market ETF already owns technology companies, for example, adding a technology ETF doesn't mean you've suddenly discovered technology. You already owned it. You're simply choosing to own more of it. And that brings us to the other part of the framework. Explore. The Explore portfolio is different. This is where you might deliberately seek additional exposure to technology, emerging markets, REITs, a particular industry, a thematic ETF, or even an individual company. You might believe an area has attractive characteristics, you might have a particular interest in it, or perhaps you simply want to experiment with a small portion of your portfolio. That's fine. But remember, explore comes after core. Your core portfolio already owns many of the companies you'll find in these specialized investments. Explore isn't there to fill a hole in your portfolio. It's there to give you additional, targeted exposure. And because targeted investments can introduce more concentration risk, we've used roughly 10% or less as a general framework for the explore portion. So think about it this way. Core. I want to own the market. Core. Tilt. I want to own the market with somewhat more exposure to X. Explore. I deliberately want additional exposure to X. That distinction can prevent a surprisingly common mistake, turning your entire portfolio into an explore portfolio. Once you know what each part of your portfolio is supposed to do, you can choose the specific investments. And remember, the questions we've already discussed. For each ETF, ask, what index does it track? How diversified is it? What is its expense ratio? Does it perform the role I want? And does it overlap heavily with something I already own? That last question is particularly important. Two ETFs can look completely different because they have different names, different strategies, or different categories, while actually owning many of the same companies. One useful research tool is the Fund Overlap tool from ETF Research Center. You can enter two ETFs and examine how much their holdings overlap. This doesn't tell you whether an ETF is good or bad. It simply gives you another piece of information. And sometimes you'll discover that you're not actually adding much diversification. You're simply increasing your exposure to investments you already own. Now let's make this concrete. Suppose, purely as an illustration, you've decided on 50% US stocks, 30% international stocks, 20% bonds. And suppose you're starting with $10,000. That would mean 5,000 US dollars. US stocks, 3,000 US dollars, international stocks, and 2,000 US dollars bonds. That's your target. If you later decide to add a core tilt or an explore allocation, that needs to be incorporated into the overall plan rather than simply added on top of everything else. For example, if you decide that you want 5% of the portfolio in an explore position, that 5% comes from somewhere. It doesn't magically make your portfolio 105%. And this is why writing down your target allocation is so useful. You can see exactly what you're doing. Once you've made your decisions, implementation should ideally become boring. If your circumstances allow it, consider automating regular contributions. You might invest every month, every 2 weeks, or according to whatever schedule works with your income. The exact schedule isn't the important part. The important part is creating a process that doesn't require you to make a new emotional decision every time you receive a paycheck. Because the fewer unnecessary decisions you have to make, the fewer opportunities you have to sabotage your own plan. Make the process boring. Boring is good. Eventually, your portfolio won't look exactly like the allocation you originally chose. That's normal. Markets move. Some investments rise faster than others, some fall. Your portfolio naturally drifts away from its target. That's why you need a rebalancing rule. You might rebalance based on a calendar. You might rebalance when an allocation moves sufficiently far from its target, or you might use a combination. The important thing is to decide on your approach before you're faced with a highly emotional market environment. And remember, rebalancing isn't about predicting what will happen next. It's about bringing your portfolio back toward the risk level you've already decided you can accept. This brings us directly back to the previous video. Before the next crash, write down what you're going to do. Ask yourself, what will I do if the stock market falls 20%? What about 30%? What about 40%? Will my financial situation have changed? Will my investment horizon have changed, or will the market simply be lower? If your financial situation and long-term plan haven't changed, a market decline by itself may not be a reason to abandon your strategy. And if you've deliberately selected investments that you understand and believe are appropriate for your long-term goals, a crash may even create opportunities to rebalance or continue investing at lower prices. But remember, this is not about predicting the bottom. It's about following a plan you created before emotions took over. Your future self shouldn't have to invent an investment strategy in the middle of a crisis. Finally, remember that maintaining a portfolio doesn't mean constantly changing it. Periodically ask, has my financial situation changed? Has my time horizon changed? Have my goals changed? Has my risk tolerance or ability to take risk changed? Does my portfolio still match my target allocation? Do I still understand why I own each investment? If the answers are all essentially yes, you may not need to do anything. That's an important lesson. Sometimes the correct investment decision is no action. You don't need a new ETF every month. You don't need to predict every recession. You don't need to react to every headline. And you don't need to constantly optimize something that is already doing its job. So let's put everything together. If you're building your first portfolio, here's your checklist. 1. Financial foundation. Emergency fund. High interest debt addressed. Invest money appropriate for your time horizon. 2. Your goals. Define what you're investing for. Define your time horizon. 3. Asset allocation. US stocks, international stocks, bonds. Choose your target percentages. 4. Give every investment a job core, core tilt, optional, explore, optional. 5. Choose your investments. Understand the index, check diversification, check expense ratio, check holdings, check overlap, understand the role it plays. 6. Implement. Choose your funds, invest according to your allocation, automate contributions where appropriate. 7. Maintain. Have a rebalancing rule. Review periodically. 8. Prepare for bad markets. Have an emergency fund. Decide what you'll do during a crash. Don't make major decisions based solely on fear. And finally, keep the plan simple enough that you can actually follow it. So here's your assignment. If you're just starting to invest, create your target portfolio. Write down your target US stock allocation, your target international allocation, your target bond allocation, the ETFs you're considering, the role each ETF is supposed to play, whether it belongs in your core, represents a core tilt, or belongs in Explore. And if you decide to have an Explore allocation, decide in advance how large you're willing to let it become. If you already have a portfolio, do the same exercise as an audit. Ask, if I were building my portfolio today, would I choose this allocation again? And if the answer is no, don't feel that you have to change everything tomorrow. First understand why you would change it, then decide what action, if any, makes sense. And because we've covered a lot of information throughout this series, I've created 2 resources to help you put it all into practice. The first is a 1-page portfolio checklist. You can print it, save it, and use it whenever you review your portfolio. I've also created a more comprehensive beginner's investing guide that summarizes the entire series, including the main concepts, frameworks, examples, research, and tools we've discussed. You'll find both resources linked below this video. And if you found this series useful and you'd like to support the channel, you'll also find an optional link below for that. No pressure. The most important thing is that you now have a framework you can use. Conclusion. The end of the series. Over the course of this series, we've covered a lot, but investing doesn't have to become complicated just because there are thousands of financial products available. You don't need to predict the next great company. You don't need to predict the next recession. You don't need dozens of ETFs, and you don't need to check your portfolio every day. What you need is a plan you understand, investments that have a purpose, an asset allocation appropriate for your goals and time horizon, and the discipline to follow that plan through both good markets and bad ones. Because investing isn't about making the perfect decision once, it's about making a reasonable decision and then giving it time to work. So if you've made it through this entire series, you now have something much more valuable than a list of ETFs. You have a process. Understand the foundations. Build a simple structure. Give every investment a job. Prepare for the bad times. And then let time do the heavy lifting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.